My pantry prior to this video was a complete abomination. You'll see me vlogging later and I'll kind of be like, oh, like it's a little bit messy, but like looking back now that I've had the pantry that I now have, I don't know how I did it. So I have two pantry spaces that I'm going to be rehauling in this video. The first one is an open pantry that sits above our kitchen bench. So this is the current state of our like bench space shelving. So here, this is kind of all like breakfast items, but it's all just gotten mixed up. I think that's quinoa. And then up here, these we store here for some reason, even though we probably shouldn't. We've got things like maple syrup, some salt, pepper, Luke's protein powder. Up there's some pots and pans, some cat food. As you can see, it's not the most efficient use of our space and it doesn't look very nice at all. We kind of just chuck stuff wherever we could and things get added to it occasionally, like without real intention behind it. So I feel like if we have the proper like storing mechanisms in place and it's all nice and organized, we know what goes on each shelf, then we'll be able to keep it in a nice organized state. That's the goal. The next pantry is the actual pantry. So we have a pretty cozy pantry. I love it. So let me give you a tour of our pantry as it is at the moment. Up here is just random crap that's just like some supplements. It's supposed to be basics, but it's just gotten out of hand. On this shelf, it's like all of our spices and cans of things. And then here, there's this basket that is like literally so inaccessible and it's filled with kind of grains. And then on the bottom, it's our tomato sauce. We've got like ibuprofen and whatnot in there. And then all of our milk, because like we never want to run out of soy milk or almond milk because we use them so much. The pantry is like one of those places where it'll just every once in a while get out of control. Right now it's out of control. And then I'll do like a quick fix me up of the pantry and get it like looking orderly, and then it'll just go straight back to how it was. So I want to avoid doing a quick fix me up and get everything actually sorted. I think the biggest thing working against me when it comes to pantry organization is probably space. We live in basically a granny flat. The kitchen isn't really a proper kitchen, like our pantries aren't really proper pantries. I love our space, but it is a little bit limited in how much we can have, which I think is helpful a lot of the time, but sometimes it's like frustrating because I'm like, I want a pressure cooker, where can I put it? So the first step to this whole pantry organizing process was to draw out how I wanted the end result to look. So I completely stole this idea from Sarah's Day. I watched her do her pantry organization video and I saw her do this and I was like, that's probably what inspired me to do this whole video, as well as the fact that I'm doing a bit of a home redesign. Here's my little drawing of how I want things to look. I've probably missed out a ton of things, to be honest, but this is the end goal. It's gonna be so nice if I can get it to look anything like this. So this is my extremely not to scale, it will absolutely not turn out like this drawing. It kind of, I think this just gives me an idea of like what I want to organize together and how. I don't think I want anything to be loose really, like anything I can get into jars, containers, just decanted is better for me. Well, your pantry probably isn't going to end up looking like what you sketch out, but it gives you a lot more clarity in your mind about where you want things going and the general gist of how you want things to look. The next big step for me was to measure. So I usually am the type of person that would go out, I'd buy something and just hope it would fit. Like I'd eyeball it and I'd be like, yeah, that'll be fine. And then get home and be really sad when it didn't fit. So because I know myself so well, I was like, no, you're doing this for a video, therefore you need to measure. So I got out my measuring tape. I actually took pictures of everything and put all the measurements like on photos. So the next step, and probably the most important step, was to get containers. Containers, jars, glasses, whatever you want to use to store your things. Especially after looking at a lot of like pantry redesigns and pantries that I was like, oh my god, I would love for my pantry to look like that on Pinterest. I was like, okay, I'm gonna need some jars. So my biggest recommendation to you, if you are going to do a pantry organization, is to go onto Facebook Marketplace, Gumtree, and buy up all the jars. It's better for the environment. You are going to save a lot of money because jars can get expensive. The only downside is that if you want your jars to be like all matching, then you're gonna have a hard time finding matching jars secondhand. Only downside. So I bought 2 big lots of jars secondhand, but I also had to buy quite a few new because I wanted to get this done in a short space of time. If I could go back, I would like buy out so many more jars. I underestimated the amount of jars that I needed, but you live and you learn. So I started with the biggest eyesore in my kitchen, which is that open space pantry type area. And it all kicked off with just taking everything off the shelves and putting everything into those beautiful jars that I bought. Especially on an open shelf, like I really didn't want any packaging showing. I wanted everything to look really neat and orderly. Putting the containers like back onto the shelves, the jars, all nicely aligned and orderly is probably one of the more satisfying feelings. So then I moved forward to the pantry. This is definitely the harder part of the whole process. Actually, this whole thing took way longer than I expected it to. I think it took like 2 days. So set yourself up, you're gonna spend a weekend on this project. So the first thing I did with the pantry is I actually emptied it all out, cleaned all of the shelves, and I also did some food decluttering. So just going through and being like, okay, what's expired? What is food that I'm literally never gonna eat? Can I give it to someone like my sister, parents, whatever? Or do I need to throw it out, donate it? And then I also organized everything into categories. So like put all of the basics in one section of the floor, all the spices together, all the snacks together, just to make it easier when I was decanting things and putting it into jars and just organizing in general. Something that I really struggled with was how many spices we had and how much space the spices that we own were taking up. So spices literally took up like one whole shelf, which doesn't sound like much, but when you have a pantry like the pantry that we have, it's a lot. And to be totally honest, like I don't use them. I am not the cook of our house. Luke is the cook. I would get rid of them all, but Luke would probably be sad. So instead I decided that I would decant them and put them into these way nicer looking spice jars. So these were from Kitchen Warehouse. These ones weren't secondhand. And originally I was just going to put them back in the cupboard. Then I noticed that we have a whole ledge on our kitchen bench that was not being used. It was just wasted space. So I decided that I would put all of the spice jars on the ledge. My preference would be a clear kitchen bench. Like if I could have nothing on the kitchen bench, I would be stoked, waiting for my butler's pantry. But for space saving purposes, I was really happy to put the spice jars on that kitchen bench. And literally the rest of the process of organizing that pantry was just pouring everything into jars and containers. There's so much pouring. So far I've made my house look like a freaking wreck, but I have a whole bunch of things that have been put into containers. There's still a heap of stuff to sort. I had to do another trip to get more containers. Anyways, I'm gonna get back to putting things in containers, making things work, and then organizing it all and putting it back in the cupboard, which once again, most satisfying part. It's gonna feel so good. My pantry situation is 100% better than what it was. Probably the biggest benefit, and probably definitely the most unexpected, because I had no intention of seeking this benefit, is that I am way more conscious when I buy food now. It sounds kind of silly, but I've talked about this concept before, but not really in relation to food. When you cut down the amount of space that you have to store things, you're going to naturally be more conscious of what you purchase to put in that space. I find myself shopping out of my cupboard more, like being like, okay, I want to make something, rather than looking up a recipe online, looking to my cupboard and being like, well, what do I have? Let's start with that. Also, the second biggest benefit, which is the benefit that I was seeking, is that I can see everything. Like I know what we have. I'm never opening my cupboard and being like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. What's going on with my pantry? Another benefit is that it doesn't get that messy, because there's not really much opportunity for things to get messy. Everything has a space, just like in my room. I have an assigned space for every single thing in the pantry, so it's kind of hard for things to get out of order. So I reorganized my pantry some time ago now. Like it's been a few months. Firstly, I kind of forgot to film it after the fact. Don't ask me how, most important shots to get. But also I was like, hey, I always watch these kind of things and I wonder like what actually happens like after you've really used that space. So I thought it'd be interesting to show you after a few months how it's gone, like whether it's stayed as organized as it kind of was in the shots that you did see, or whether it's like fallen to shambles. So I'm gonna show you first the open space pantry bit, and you can see whether I actually kept with it or... So this is how the open space pantry is looking. So as you can see, we stuck to the jars really well. I put this in a jar right before the video because I was like, you know what? We want to make it look cohesive. Luke just bought this back from Bali. Otherwise it would have gone straight in there anyways. But everything has basically stayed in jars. So this is like all my breakfast stuff. I put a lot of stuff in my muesli. We've got our tea, all of supplements are in here. You can see like the container is getting like a little tight. Like this is sitting up here, so that's kind of messy. This has been added. So this is Luke's coffee cup. I think like it could go down here. I want to get him a keep cup. And then up top there's protein powder, there's the sandwich press, and then there's, I think that's empty. So this is how our pantry is looking. So We've done it pretty well. This is empty. I don't know what was in there before. I need to fill it with brown rice though. This shelf, like, yep, it stayed pretty the same. I never got around to doing like proper labels, but honestly, like, these work for me. I don't need proper labels. I feel like they're just for other people. For me, these work fine. So this is probably where it gets like a little bit more crowded. Once again, we've got an empty jar over here. Because there's times when we do buy stuff that we don't really have the containers for. So I've been putting some basic stuff, so like breadcrumbs, or we've got potato flour and pasta just like sitting to the side for when these are emptied, we can just fill them with them. So down here I ended up adding in a 3-tier can holder. Oh, that's dodgy, that shouldn't go there. So I'm gonna put that there so it looks a little bit nicer. So this can holder is kind of perfect, and then just on the side we store other bits and bobs like oils. So this is like cans and oils on this shelf. So down here you also have an additional oil there. I guess it didn't fit up here, but mainly it's like spreads, so like peanut butter, cacao super spread, we've got some maple syrup, and then like sweet stuff. So this is it's like juice. This is supposed to be the snacks, but it's also where things go that I'm like, I don't have a container for it. So that is one of the frustrations. I'm like, do I get a whole container for these dried shiitake mushrooms that I'm probably gonna use in the next week, or just leave them in the snack section? But also there's stuff like the rice paper roll wrappers that like, they just don't fit anywhere. Down here is almond milk. We just drink a lot of almond milk. And then you've got tablets. I think it's worked really well, better than I thought it would. I thought it might degrade. I mean, that's like not having a lot of hope in myself, but I was like, oh, like how long will this stay? You know, I've tried to reorganize my cupboard before, like not with intensity like this reorganization, but like I've tried to go through it and rehaul it before, and it just kind of like falls to shambles. Whereas with this, like it's been a few months and I love it and I'm gonna stick with it. If you liked this video, you are going to like my room redesign video where I do a total revamp of this room. It looked like this and now it looks like this. One of my big things this year is doing like home redesign. So that's why you're getting so many videos of it, because I'm like, look, if I'm doing it, I'm gonna make content of it. Let me know what you would like to see next. I'm thinking of doing a bedroom redesign. I think that might be the next room that I need to do. I appreciate you guys so much and I will see you soon.